Hi, I'm Hillary. Welcome to my channel, Teaching Moments. So when I tell people that I homeschool my kids, I often hear people say, I can never homeschool my own kids. And now we're in a pandemic where a lot of people are having to school through this crisis, their children, or to at least just be more academically involved than they were before. So whether you homeschool your kids or you're just schooling at home because of the crisis, the behavior issues are often the same. So I'm doing this video today because I would like to give some ideas and examples of what I do to maybe help somebody else out as they are teaching their children at home. So first of all, I would like to give you a little bit of background and so you can see where I come from. So I have 4 children. They are between the ages of 9 and 17. I've been homeschooling since 2007. And through this journey, I discovered that all 4 of my kids have dyslexia to varying degrees. And my youngest 2 have ADHD. And that comes out in each of those kids in a different way. So I have learned how to deal with some challenges, and of course, as all parents know who have more than one child, each child has their own personality too. So also, I was schooled mostly in public school. So when I started my homeschool journey, those were my expectations, is what I used to do in public school. But it didn't take long in my homeschooling journey before I realized my homeschool didn't have to be that way. When you're educating your own kids, it doesn't have to look like that box that public school normally does. You don't have to have the same schedule or whatever. You have a lot more freedom to do how you need to do it. You can cater it specifically to each different child, which is one of the beautiful things about educating your kids at home. So even for those of you who are just schooling your kids at home during this pandemic, if there's ways that you can create it to be a little more individualized for them, that will just help them out all the more for that. Okay, so I had to shift my mindset when I was thinking about homeschooling, and I was thinking they have to sit here and listen. But real life is they don't have to just sit and listen. They can listen standing up or sitting down or laying on the floor. They can be at the kitchen table, or they can be sitting on their bed, or they can be out in the yard. It doesn't really matter where they learn so long as they're learning. And this is especially good for those who have ADHD children, like I said that I do. I learned that my son, he likes to stand a lot when we're doing school. It used to bother me, but it doesn't bother me so much anymore because I've learned that as I ask him questions about what I was just teaching or what we were talking about, he's getting it all. And it's actually better for him to stand sometimes so he doesn't have to concentrate on trying to sit still, and then he's not paying attention to me because he's concentrating on trying to sit still. So sometimes standing works just fine. So we need to change our mindsets on that sometimes. Another thing is it's natural to get frustrated with our children from time to time, and that's just evident in parenting. But be sure to manage your anger and how you respond to your kids. Think about what you say and what you do before you do it. Yelling doesn't usually help very much. It usually just makes matters worse. And then the children, especially in the learning situation, they get apprehensive to do it or to say the answers. They are nervous, and you can't work as well when you're nervous. They're just less willing to do their work. And even if they do their work, they're doing it oftentimes out of fear for you and making you mad. So just take a deep breath and consider what you say and what you do before you do it. And if they need discipline on something, absolutely you should discipline them, but make sure that the crime fits the punishment fits the crime. That's what I meant to say. And just be sure to give it to them kindly and yeah, just breathe and be sure to take a break. I've used timeouts with my kids in the past, and that helps to give them time to just breathe and relax a little bit. And it also gives me the chance to reevaluate if this is a moment when we should take a teaching moment and I can teach them about character and how to handle their emotions, or is this a time when we just need to push through academically and just learn how to do something even when we don't really feel like doing it? Or is this a time when we really just should stop for a little bit, take a break, even if it's like an hour, or maybe just pick it up tomorrow and where you left off? So I've had all three of those different situations happen before, and I usually say a little prayer and ask the Lord to help me figure out which situation this is, just because he knows best, and he's always been faithful to help me with that. But yes, just trying to discern what kind of a moment this is. And for you too, you know your patience level, so don't set yourself up to burst out. So managing our anger. Also, taking frequent breaks is good, especially for kids that have ADD or ADHD. As I was looking back at my ADHD research stuff I've looked into in the past, I was just kind of trying to fresh up on that for this video. It did say that as often as once per hour, they should get up and just be able to move, be able to take a break. And actually, research has shown that kids who take more breaks and play are more manageable in the classroom. So they just need to be kids. So that was an interesting fact. Also, learning doesn't have to be boring or just sitting there listening to lectures. Learning can be fun and it can be interactive. Especially as they're learning at home, you can be more interactive and have more games or more interactive experiments than they can in a school setting when they have more children to manage. Plus, it helps the bond between the parent and child when you do that. So I'd like to encourage you to just try to help them have some fun. I have learning games on my channel if you'd like to go look at some. They're pretty good, they're pretty fun, and sometimes it's nice to just take a break, but you can still do learning and review with those learning games. So go check those out. I also have, after doing some research on dyslexia and ADHD, I discovered that peppermint is said to help the memory. So I looked it up to see how true this was, because I also had a president of our state's dyslexia association even told me that, and so I was like, well, anything that'll help. So I kind of looked into if that was true or not, and it's about 50-50 people who believe whether it's actually works or not. But I figured, what the heck. So I always give my kids some peppermint gum. Actually, I have some sitting right here. I give them some peppermint gum before they do class, especially math. And it also is supposed to help with the ADHD child so that they have something that they're doing, a movement that they're making, and that helps them to learn, keeps them busy with movement, so then they don't have to be fidgeting as much maybe because they're chewing gum. That's the theory anyway. I have found that it helps with my kids. I also really like the idea of using oils. Now, I don't do oils very much because I don't feel like I know enough about them, but I do have a friend that sells oils. So she gave me this little mixture of peppermint and frankincense to help with focus. And so sometimes my boys have days where they're really struggling to focus, and so I'll just put some here or on the back of their neck to help them. So oils are an option too, especially if you already have some of those in your house. I also use incentives and rewards. So I've been teaching my kiddos since, well, 3 of them I've taught since preschool, and the other one was kindergarten that I started teaching them. And so I've learned that to help with behavior and avoid meltdowns and get a more positive attitude from them, I use some rewards. Like, I used to use stickers. I also use candy. And then for a time I was using a prize box. So what I would do when they were really little, because it's kind of like training a puppy, and you give them like treats or whatever to reinforce the good behavior. And so you would, for each class that they got through, it's like, good job, and they would have a sticker or maybe a jelly bean or something, so that they knew that that was good. And then the next class we did, each class that they did well, that they had a good attitude, good behavior in, they would get a reward. Then as they got a little bit older, first grade-ish, then I would only give them like they'd have to do half a day of school before getting a reward, and then finish their day and then get another reward at the end. Then when they were older, they only got a reward for at the end of the day if they had a good attitude and if they were not fussing or whining or throwing a fit about anything. So for this to work, you need to be sure that the kids are clear about what you expect of them and make sure they repeat it back to you, especially if they're little or if they're ADHD type of person. Make sure that they just heard what you said. Make sure they're looking at you. Tell them what you expect and then have them repeat it back to you so that you know that they remember. And then I always give my children a warning before they're getting really close to getting that incentive taken away. And that warning is change your behavior so that you don't get your incentive taken away. And it's kindly, not used as a threat, it's just a warning. And then we talk about it at the end of the day. If they didn't make it, didn't get the reward, we talk about what happened and maybe how we can handle that better next time. And tomorrow we'll work on it again. So that's what I use for incentives now. I used to use it, like I said, a prize box, and in the prize box I would have like pencils and erasers, the fun erasers, like the flowers, or there was like a Charlie Brown Christmas ones or something like that. Erasers, what else did I have? Rulers, I had some bracelets for the girls. I have different kinds of stickers. I can't think of all the things that I had. So things that you get for like little party favors that you put in birthday bags, that kind of stuff. That's the aisle I went to find stuff like that. Even like little yo-yos. Oh man, they love those sticky things, like those little sticky hands. They love those too. So I'd put that in there sometimes too. So there's some ideas for incentives and rewards. They've kind of grown out of most of that except for candy, right? I mean, who grows out of candy? So we still have candy actually with it Easter just having ended. We have a lot of candy, too much candy. So we have got chocolates and we've got jelly beans, and I have another jar of jelly beans behind the camera. So anyway, candy, yes. Okay. Celebrate accomplishments. This is a real big one for those who have learning challenges and who have like ADD, ADHD, dyslexia. So these students, they're so used to hearing negative comments, maybe from their teachers, from us parents, from other peers. If they have an IEP, there's like goals they have to make, and they're always striving, always working so hard. So having that positive reinforcement and making a big deal of accomplishments is really good for them. So just stopping to acknowledge them, it's very life-giving for them. So I've done everything from like praising them big time and being like, good job, to actually announcing to the family, look, he just finished this level, or whatever, he just finished his math book. Let's all give him a round of applause, I've even sometimes take the kids out for ice cream if they've done a really good job. Like after I grade all the papers from the end of the year, I usually do take the kids out for ice cream because that's a lot of papers per child, and they did a lot of work and they worked hard. And so sometimes if they've just done something big, like in Barton reading, they've completed a level or something, good job, they get their certificate, we go have some ice cream, we celebrate it, we make it a big deal. So everybody loves it when they're praised and recognized for their hard work, and kids aren't any different. So be sure to celebrate accomplishments, especially those things when they can see that wall that's like, oh, that math problem, or oh, that spelling list, and when they finally broke through, just really, really recognize that. One interesting part of learning at home is oftentimes there are siblings around. So how do you as a parent keep from losing order of your home and create a good environment for those who are trying to learn? So that depends upon the ages of your children. So if you have school-age children like I do, trying to put them together, group them together in one class, or doing one class at a time. Like for example, I have 3 of them that I do math at the same time most of the time. If they have a new lesson, the other kids go sit somewhere else and I just do the person with the new lesson. I work on them first. But oftentimes they'll just do their pages in the same room for math, and I'm just walking around seeing if anybody needs my help. Those are usually the review pages. So it's nice because I know where everybody is. Nobody's going to come in or interrupt them because they're all doing school, and so that's nice. Also, let's see here, what else was I thinking of? Kids who aren't doing school at that time. In our house, they have to do chores before they can have some free time. And so that way I know that they have a task that they're supposed to be doing. And I check on them as I get done with school with each child. I go check on the other kids and see if they're doing what they've been told. This also teaches them responsibility. So even though I'm not actually teaching them, they are still actually learning how to complete a task in a timely manner, how to do a good job of it, and those kinds of things. Also in our house, you're not allowed to have screen time until you've done your chores and you're finished with school. This is an incentive, and it makes everybody want to be, I'll do school next, am I next? I want to be next so that I can play the computer. So that's also an incentive. When my kids were young and I had a toddler or a baby and I had some school-age children, it did get a little trickier. But I would try to take the time when my youngest child would nap. I would take that time to do the more time-consuming classes with the older child so that they would have more of my attention. Then if the younger child is up and you're still needing to do school, there's a lot of sensory activities for younger children to do. You can either put them in the same room as you or just near you, however you handle that. Depends on the layout of your house. While you're doing school with the other kids. It is a little tricky to do school learning at home when you have littles, but it is doable. I've done it several times. It's been interesting to have a baby and also a toddler who's being potty trained and also a second grader who's trying to do their math. So it can be tricky and sometimes entertaining and sometimes hair pulling. So I get it, I understand. I have a couple of good resources that I'd like to mention. I forgot to grab those books. I'm gonna grab them, just a minute. Okay, sorry about that. The first book is called Teaching from Rest, and I just read this book recently. I have mentioned it on one of my other YouTube videos, but it's worth mentioning again. And it is a small book. It's a real easy read, but it's such a good book. Teaching from Rest, A Homeschooler's Guide to Unshakable Peace. I still think this is just, it's a good book. And I've been saying a lot of the things that she's saying in here, I've been saying for years. So Teaching from Rest by Sarah McKenzie. Okay, another great book for parents is called Raising Kingdom Kids by Tony Evans. And I know I've mentioned this one before on my blog and on my YouTube, but it is worth mentioning it again. And it's not a homeschool book, it's a parenting book. And it really, it doesn't say anything about parenting, about homeschooling, but parenting and homeschooling or learning at home really go hand in hand. So the lessons you learn through this book are gonna help you as you teach your kids at home. And then as far as helping kids with ADHD, dyslexia, or ADD, or other type of like anything on the autism spectrum, go to understood.org. They are a really great website and a really great resource to get ideas on how to handle situations. I hope this gives you some ideas for managing your kids' behavior as you take on learning at home. You're probably doing a much better job than you think. You can do this, you're doing great, and thank you so much for watching my channel today.